name is Juan, and this is my sister Juliana. Welcome to Sunday School.
I'm set apart from the ash. I am born again, forever safe in the Savior's hands. You are more than words could say. I follow you over all my days. Fix my eyes, follow in your ways. Forever free in unending grace. 'Cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher. Lift you higher, your love never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Oh, oh, oh. In the midst of the darkest night, let your love be the shining light, breaking chains that were holding me. You sent your son down to set me free. Everything of this world will fade. I'm pressing on till I see your face. I will live that your will be done. I won't stop till your kingdom come. 'Cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher, lift you higher. Your love never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Oh, oh, oh. You are my freedom. We lift you higher. You are my freedom. We lift you higher, lift you higher. Your love never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Oh, oh, oh.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for Sunday School at Evangel Temple. It's me, Christine, and I'm really happy to be with you this week. A few weeks ago, we told you that we were going to start doing lessons in bravery. So we went through the Bible and we picked out a whole bunch of really brave people because, if you remember from 2 weeks ago, in this life we're going to have troubles. That's guaranteed, and how we deal with it shows bravery. So we thought we would go through the Bible and we would pick a whole bunch of people who did really brave, strong, and courageous things, and that we would learn from these people how to be brave ourselves. Last week, Miss Jen told you about our first person that we're studying, and that was, anyone remember? It was Daniel. We learned about Daniel last week, and Miss Jen told us a whole bunch of really cool things about the life of Daniel. I think that we probably all know the story of Daniel in the lion's den. And that is a really cool story that shows how brave Daniel was. He didn't stop praying to God, even though the king and all of the people around him told him that it was against the law to pray to God. He didn't stop. He got thrown into a lion's den. The lions did not eat him, even though they were really hungry probably. And God protected Daniel. And then because of that, Daniel was able to show who the true God was. True God is God in heaven. So, everyone knows the story of Daniel, but Miss Jen told us a whole bunch of little details about how Daniel was brave even before that. So I had a really cool thought. I had a thought that Daniel had to practice being brave before this big lion's den event where he has to prove that he is so brave. He practiced a whole bunch in his life before that. And we're going to go through a few of the ways that Daniel showed bravery before the whole thing with the lion's den. If we turn in our Bibles to the book of Daniel, which is in the Old Testament, just after Ezekiel, about 2/3 of the way through the Bible, we find the stories of Daniel in here. And every time I read the book of Daniel, I really, really learn so much about how to be brave. If you remember from Miss Jen talking last week, Daniel and his friends and a whole bunch of other royal men were taken out of Israel or Jerusalem when King Nebuchadnezzar came and stole them basically from their land and from their families and brought them to Babylon. Babylon was a whole different world for them. They had their own gods that they worshipped, and they did a whole bunch of things that God had told them, this is not the right thing for you guys to do. And one of those things was eating certain foods and drinking certain drinks. Daniel knew ahead of time that he wasn't supposed to eat certain foods because God had given him the law a long time ago, and Daniel wanted to uphold the law even though he was in a new land. If we go to Daniel chapter 1 verse 8, it says, "But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine." So, one of the lessons that I learned from Daniel is that he decided ahead of time to do the right thing. He decided ahead of time not to eat the food and the wine that he knew God didn't want him to have. And the lesson for us in this is that we live in a world full of temptations, full of the wrong things that God doesn't want us to do because he knows it's going to hurt us. And if we can learn a lesson from Daniel, it's we need to decide, we need to resolve ahead of time not to give in to the temptations, just like Daniel did. If we jump ahead to Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar, who's the king, has a dream. And I told you that they lived in Babylon and they believed in different gods there. And there were people like magicians and sorcerers and astrologers who thought that they were believing and practicing the right things, even though they were associated with different gods. So King Nebuchadnezzar calls all of them together because he has this dream that's very unsettling for him and he doesn't know how to interpret it. He doesn't know what it means. So he calls all of these people who should have all of this important knowledge and he asks them to tell him what the dream was. None of these people could tell King Nebuchadnezzar what his dream was ahead of time. Imagine your sister has a dream and she says, "Guess what my dream was?" How would we know what that is? You could guess anything in the whole world. There's thousands and thousands and maybe millions even of different dreams that she could have had. King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream and he called these people, all these magicians, and he called all these people and said, "Tell me what my dream was and then tell me what it means." And all of them can't do it. And they are probably praying to their gods and doing whatever magic and things that they know that or we know is not the right thing to do. And they don't get information about what King Nebuchadnezzar's dream was. And what actually happened because of that, they couldn't tell King Nebuchadnezzar his dream, so he had them all killed. What? He had all of them killed. And then he sent for Daniel and his friends. And he said, "You chief, go get Daniel and his friends." So Daniel comes in, and here's the second thing that we learn about Daniel. who's in a very stressful position right now because he has just seen all of these people killed because they weren't able to help King Nebuchadnezzar tell him his dream. So Daniel comes in, and if we go to chapter 2, verse 14, it says, Daniel spoke to the commander of the king's guard with wisdom and tact. What does that mean? What lesson is this in bravery? It means that even when we're in stressful situations or when things are scary or wonky or crazy, like what's happening here where people are just being killed because they can't tell the king his dream, Daniel is calm and he speaks with wisdom and is kind. So I know that when I feel stressed out, it's my first instinct to probably go crazy. Maybe I shout a little bit, maybe I cry a little bit, maybe I'm freaked out and I don't know what to do and I'm panicky. Daniel doesn't do that. He speaks calmly and with wisdom and tact and says, hey, what's going on here? Tell me what the problem is so that I can help with it. That's the second thing that we can learn from Daniel. So the first is we are deciding ahead of time not to give in to the temptations of the world. And the second is we can speak calmly and kindly even when we're stressed out, even when things are going on, to try to understand what the problem is. The third really cool thing that we learn from Daniel is the power and importance of prayer in order to be brave. So Daniel's in this situation where he's just heard of a whole bunch of people being killed because they couldn't tell King Nebuchadnezzar his dream and what it meant. And do you know what Daniel does? He doesn't freak out. He is calm. He's wise. He's full of wisdom and tact. He has a conversation with the commander of the king's guard. And then it says in chapter 2, verse 17, then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends, who are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In chapter 2, verse 18, it says, he urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery. So, do you know what he does? He prays, and he asks his friends, please pray. Pray that God can help me by giving me information about this dream so I can go to King Nebuchadnezzar and we won't all be killed too. Because that's what King Nebuchadnezzar was saying. You're going to be killed if you can't tell me what my dream is. So Daniel urges them to plead for mercy. Please, please, please pray for me so that we can have understanding of what this mystery dream is for King Nebuchadnezzar. The result is that Daniel gets this vision in his sleep, and it tells him what King Nebuchadnezzar's dream was. God came to Daniel because of the prayers of him and his friend and gave him information about King Nebuchadnezzar's dream so that Daniel can go tell King Nebuchadnezzar the next day what his dream was and what it means. I think this is so cool. And it's so cool because it's kind of a different way to look at bravery. Instead of rushing into action with his sword and his shield and maybe killing King Nebuchadnezzar, which he could have done, because King Nebuchadnezzar was about to kill him, like he had killed all of the other people who had tried to interpret the dream and couldn't, Daniel prays that God show him the mysteries of this dream, and God does. So, the important thing that we need to know about being brave is that our bravery doesn't come from ourselves. We could be all full of bravado and yes, I am brave, and then something scary could happen and come into our lives, and it's not up to us to be brave. We need to go to God, we need to pray to him, and we need to ask him for help because he's the helper. We can't do things on our own. If you remember our verse from 2 weeks ago, I told you we were going to do 2 verses, Joshua 1 verse 9 and Philippians 4 verse 13. Philippians 4 verse 13 says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, or who strengthens me. Daniel knew that he couldn't come up with the mysteries of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream on his own. He knew that he would have to pray and have God reveal it to him. So that shows us that we need God to be brave. We need to pray when we are feeling scared or anxious or worried, like Daniel must have felt when he thought he was going to be killed for not having this information. We need to go to God in prayer. And the even cooler thing is, Daniel asked his friends to pray for him.
Sorry, Katie. No!
What's the difference between a regular
No. Hey, wait. Just wait.
Today, I want you to sit down. Oh, let you sit down first.
what?
For hot chocolate. Very tasty.
Welcome to Sunday school.
Oh, I can hear it. I hear little static shocks.
Thanks for joining us at Evangel Temple for Sunday School today. I'm Captain Cool. It's just me, Christine.
Okay.
And we want to see it. So send it to us and at kids@evangeltemple.com. But not and at. Send it to kids@evangeltemple.com. That was Give It a Shot with Scott.
So, when we go to the book of Daniel and we look at the first few chapters to see what kind of happens in Daniel's life before the lion's den, before this really big, brave event that happens, we can see a few important things that Daniel did that we could do too. The first is we decide ahead of time not to give in to temptation. Just like Daniel decided ahead of time not to eat the food, and he ended up being stronger and healthier because of it. He knew the rules that God had given him, and he chose ahead of time to follow them. That's what we should do. The second thing is when something hard is happening in our lives, it's easy to freak out and panic. Instead of doing that, it's really important, like Daniel, to be calm and full of wisdom. And the way that we get wisdom is by going to God. We pray and we ask God, and maybe we ask even the people around us, our friends, our family, to pray for us, to help us do the things that are hard to do. We can't do things without God. That's why he gave us the Bible. That's why he gave us his son, Jesus. That's why all of this happens, because God knows we can't do this without him, and he doesn't want us to. He wants us to talk to him, to include him in things, and to pray to him. So, this week, if you're feeling anxious or worried or scared, just like Daniel must have felt, the first thing we should do is we should go to God in prayer. And even enlist the help of your friends around you. Text a friend or call a friend or ask your family, hey, could you please help me pray for this? Because it's really hard in my life right now and I would like God's help. God is faithful and he is just and he will do everything that he can to help us. This week, your challenge is to think of something that you need help with, that only God can give you, that you can't, because we know that our strength and our power doesn't come from ourselves, it comes from God. That's the same of bravery. Your challenge this week is to think of one of those things that is really tough in your life and email Tanya. And what I am going to do, and what I'm hoping the other kids ministry team leaders will do, and the adults in the church who are watching this, is we promise to pray for you. We promise to go to God on your behalf with whatever you're struggling with, and we commit to praying for you so that you have strength and that you have bravery and that you have courage to do the hard things in your life today. So email what you're struggling, whatever is going on in your life that's hard right now, email it to Tanya at kids@evangelnapanee.com, and Tanya, with the permission of parents, will share this information with the kids ministry, myself, Miss Jen, and Miss Shalana, and we commit to praying for you ahead of time. We commit to go to God on your behalf and to ask him for help with all the hard things, just like Daniel asked his friends for help with those hard things. Send whatever you're struggling with to Tanya, kids@evangelnapanee.com. It has been really good spending time learning about the cool things that Daniel learned so that we can learn about how to be brave like Daniel. Thanks for joining us this week at Sunday School. See you next week.
Hey boys and girls, it is Miss Shalana, and that means it is time to do some science. For today's experiment, you are going to need the following items. You are going to need some type of tray or bowl because we're going to be making a little bit of a mess. You are going to need a cup. You are going to need some vinegar and baking soda. And you might already know the first part of our experiment when you see vinegar and baking soda. And you are also going to need a lit candle. So make sure when you are lighting your candle that you have your parent or your guardian who's going to help you get that candle lit, just so that we are safe. So that is what we are going to need to start our experiment. Now, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take our cup and put it inside of our bowl or our tray. We're just going to set it inside it, and this is just so that if we make a mess, it overflows into our tray and not all over our table and onto the floor. The next thing that we're going to do, we are going to take our vinegar and we are going to pour it into our container about a quarter of the way full. So you can have your parent or guardian help you with this. We're going to pour it. That looks good. Mine is a little bit more than a quarter full, but that just means I'm going to make a bigger mess, and that's the fun part. So now we are going to take our baking soda and we are going to dump it into our vinegar. And I think some of you probably already know what's about to happen, so let's see. So I have my baking soda. I grabbed a spoon. You can use a spoon or not. I'm just going to take a big spoonful of my baking soda and mix it with my vinegar, and let's see what's going to happen. Oh yeah, that's a good volcano. Now we're just going to watch it erupt here for a minute. And then we're going to do something as it dies down a little bit too with our candle. So that part is pretty cool in itself. We like to make a big eruption and a big mess, but now we are going to, once it's died down a bit, we're going to pick this up. Careful, it might be a little bit wet. We're going to go over to our candle, and I'm going to tip my cup. Now, I'm not actually going to pour out any liquid. I'm just going to tip my cup and see what happens to the candle. Did you guys see that? What happened? The candle went out, but I didn't even pour anything on it, did I? Let's try that again. Let's see that again. I'm going to light my candle. Make sure you have a parent or guardian do this part for you. Okay, that's ready to go. I'm going to add a bit more vinegar back. And a little bit more baking soda so that we can see that again, because that looked pretty strange. How did the fire go out if nothing went on to it? Okay, we have another eruption. You can add food coloring to your eruption too if you'd like as well to make it a nice, bright, colorful eruption. So we're going to let it die down again a little bit. And then we're going to see what happens with this fire. And I'm going to hold it a little bit closer for you this time so that you can see really what's going on here. So I've got my fire. I'm going to bring my cup up. What? I think we need to talk about this to see what's going on here. So now the question is, how are we able to put out the fire without actually pouring anything out of our cup? Now that's kind of a trick question because we actually did pour something out of our cup. We just can't see it. When we mix baking soda and vinegar together, we actually make a gas called carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide can be poured out, we just can't see it, and it puts out the fire. And the interesting thing with carbon dioxide is that is actually the same gas that we breathe out. So if we breathe in and then breathe out, you just breathed out carbon dioxide. That's the same gas we made when we made our eruption. And the carbon dioxide puts out the fire because fire needs oxygen. So You can try that experiment at home, see if you are able to. The first fun part is actually make the eruption, and then see if you can take that invisible carbon dioxide and pour it onto your candle to put out the candle.